Good morning, church. First, forgive me if I have to get a drink of water. We, as Pastor Josh said, I coach football, so we started off-season lifting this week. And my voice is not in lifting form yet, so I may need to take a drink. You know, the cool thing about speaking to 14 and 18-year-old eyeballs is two things. Number one, I can get to call them out if they're not paying attention, which I promise I won't do to you. But the even better one is if they're not paying attention and I tell them to and they still don't, I get to make them run. Or when I'm, standing in front of a group of coaches and they have questions for me about football, running the power play to an odd front or an even front. Or maybe what a tight end surface does to a defense and adjust gap responsibilities. I can engage an audience pretty well with that. So I'm not going to pretend this morning to be Pastor Doug, Pastor Josh, or Pastor John. As he said, it's my first sermon. But I take it very seriously. And before I get into the Lord's message this morning, I do want to introduce myself a little bit more because some of you know who I am and a little bit of our story, but most of you don't. And I think it's important to do that. My wife, Christina, over there with the baby, we've been coming here for about 3 years now. And Christina is a nurse. We have 4 children. We have Addison, who's 6, Aiden, who's 5, Austin's 3, and Amelia is 9 months. So we've been blessed. We're grateful to be here. And I just think it's important before I get into the Lord's message to kind of give you a testimony of what the Lord's done in our lives. So I'm fairly local kid growing up. I'm from the Manaway, Hiram area. So I went to Crestwood High School and have great parents, both still alive. Just come from a home that's, very driven, high expectations, particularly in academics and sports. My dad, he's a character, to say the least. He keeps things pretty simple, and he tells you how it is in a simple way, and maybe that's why I'm a very simple guy. He looked at it this way in terms of grades. Let's say A, you're just giving great effort. B is good effort, and you can go C is average effort. You see how he just turns to effort, and that's how he'd always explain it to me. Or, hey, look, man, you don't have to lift. Champions train, losers complain. Those type of things. So we just come from a very driven home, and sports was a huge priority in our house. My sister was a Division I softball player at The Ohio State University. She was Gatorade Player of the Year in high school in softball, so she was the best as a senior. And I was fortunate enough to get a Division I scholarship as well. So our parents, I give them a lot of credit. We've been blessed, but we didn't grow up in a Christian home. I'll explain it, a very moral, ethical home. So off to college, I go to Kent State, as you know, local, and had the opportunity to play and start as a true freshman and do well, and play and start as a sophomore and do well. So heading into my junior year, as crazy as it sounds, I started having aspirations and dreams to play in the NFL. And nobody told me then the NFL didn't stand for National Football League. It stands for not for long. But I started having dreams of that, aspirations. So heading into my junior year, that was a big year for me and for my development and see if I can actually make that happen. Again, it was a big off season for me. So heading into that off season, weightlifting started about this time of year. And as many as as you may know, colleges don't ever call off school really for snow. And I tell you what, lifting never gets called off for snow either. We lifted at 6 a.m. And so we're on our way to workouts, me and my roommate. And part of our off-season training program, our coach put accountability groups together. And in that accountability group, a lot of things mattered. Points got taken away if you were late. Points got taken away if you missed a workout, missed a class, etc. You got added points if you did great effort at a workout or you did community service or anything like that. So everything mattered, okay? And so we're on our way to workouts, and it's a snowy morning, and we get a call from one of our accountability group teammates stating to us that his car would not start. So it's like we had a decision to make right then and there. Our strength coach at Kent State when I was there was very military drill sergeant-esque. It was, if it's 6:01, I mean, you're late. And you're doing some things that I don't even want to speak of now. You can't do anymore. But also, if you don't get your teammate, you're especially if he doesn't come to work out, that was a high deduction of your team. So we make the decision to go pick him up. So we're on our way to workouts, and as some of you are familiar with this area, we're on Powder Mill Road by the old Kent State golf course. Okay, so we're driving up to the railroad ties that are there. Okay, and a train starts to come. So you know the stop, they're coming down. And I'm like, okay, I'm already thinking about, okay, I'm going to be throwing up because I'm going to be doing somersault, doing something crazy. And next thing I know, kids don't do this at home. My teammate goes around him. The train's coming, and he goes around him. That's how deathly afraid we were of being late. So he gets around him, right? But we're going down, it's just a gradual hill. And again, it's a snowy morning. That's a side road that hasn't been really touched. We start hydroplaning and losing control. And at the line of the golf course there was a bunch of trees. And the car just slowly starts to, well, probably not slowly, but it starts to turn. And again, kids at home, please wear a seatbelt. I did not have my seatbelt on. So the back of the car hits the trees. And I fly back, break through the windshield, and just get stopped by the car. So luckily, obviously nothing serious happened to me other than I had a back injury. So I quickly recovered from that. I was out for some time, but quickly recovered from that and to get, again, a big year for me, my junior year of football, to get ready. So as we head into fall camp and the summer two-a-day starts, I'm doing fine. And though once we started hitting each other, I started getting back pain. But again, it was important to me. This was a huge year for me to see if this was going to be a reality. And so I didn't tell anybody that it was hurting until one day I could not stand up straight. So I said, well, I better go tell someone now. And I told the trainers and the doctors and things, and they did more tests, and they found 3 fractures in my lower back and my vertebrae. So, the doctor's sitting there with me and our head coach and our trainers and my parents, and he just said, look, your career's over. And football, folks, that was my God. That's where I found my identity and purpose. So as you can imagine, a 20-year-old, really, his dreams were crushed. So I'm laying there in the training room because, again, I can't do much. And I'm laying there, and a big, huge human being walks in the training room. And I've seen this guy before. I don't know who he was. Walks up to me, when I was laying there, and he hands me a book. Which is funny because at that time I did not like reading. Hands me a book called Uncommon by Tony Dungy. Some of you may know who Tony Dungy is, some of you may not. Tony Dungy, very successful NFL football coach, the first African-American football coach to win the Super Bowl. So that intrigued me. And what else was I going to do? Because I was just laying around. So I opened up the book. And that was the first time in my life that I saw God and football together. And believe it or not, I read the whole book. And it might have been one of the first books I read my whole life, to be honest with you. So I read the whole book. And the guy who came in to give me that book was the president of Fellowship of Christian Athletes on campus named Ted Schumacher. And so Ted calls me. And again, for me to answer the phone, knowing that was him, this is obviously the Lord, but I answered the phone. He goes, hey, Alan, why don't you come over and, I'll feed you and we'll talk about the book. And Josh is right. As soon as you bring up food and anything, I was there. So I go and we meet. Go downstairs in his basement, and Ted is, I mean, he's 6'5". He played college basketball. I mean, he's a big human being. And we sit down and we talk about the book and things, and he shared the gospel with me. It's the first time that anybody shared the gospel with me. And in his basement, that day I committed my life to Christ. So here I am, 21 years old, new Christian, but what am I going to do? My career's over. So my college coach gave me the opportunity to coach on the staff as a student assistant. So I was able to learn about the game. So as a player, you think you know a lot about the game. You think you know it all. And then when you get into coaching, you realize as a player, you knew nothing. I learned so much at that time about the game of football. So it was a real blessing. So I saw myself, maybe the next Nick Saban or Urban Meyer or something. That's kind of where I was, thinking. But also around that time, I started dating that young lady over there. And I knew I was going to marry her. She didn't know, but I knew. So I had a decision to make in terms, because Coach Martin, it was good for me to see this. Coach Martin, later that season, got fired. And I was able to be in a room for him to come in. And again, I didn't have a family or anything, but that's their livelihood. And to say, hey guys, we've been let go. And to see what that does to a room. So I automatically start to think, do I want to do that to her? So I decide to go to the high school route. It was getting my education degree. So that's what we did. We got married. And then bought a house in Garrettsville. So I got my first head coaching job at 23 at a small school in Geauga County, Burton, Ohio, Berkshire High School. And she was working at Robinson at the time in Ravenna. So that's why we bought a house in Garrettsville, pretty equal distance from work. And as we've realized in my fairly short coaching career, I've been coaching for about 11 years now, is coaching, man, it's unpredictable, even at the high school level. You think you're going to be somewhere forever, and you're not. So I was there 1 year. Looking around, wanted to be a head coach again, was an assistant at a couple places, and was fortunate to get the opportunity to get the head coaching job at Tallmadge High School. And that's where I got the opportunity to meet Pastor Josh. I explained to you how important Ted Schumacher was to me. Ted was our president of Fellowship of Christian Athletes, but he was welcome at football practice every day. So Ted knew that I wasn't out there because he watched practice every day, and he came looking for me. And that changed my life. So I always told myself whenever I'd get a head coaching job, I was going to do that as well. I was going to have somebody else on the sidelines that the kids can go talk to other than me. And I'll get into the ministry and how I feel it's a ministry for us, but I always told myself I would do it. So that's basically what Josh served for us there for a few years at Tallmadge. He gave devotions, him and Pastor Scott Lowe, and they were just there on the sidelines for support for the kids. But again, we look at this coaching thing as a ministry. And living in Garrettsville still, having a young family, and being the head coach at Tallmadge, about a 30-minute trip. And we wanted the kids over the house, meaning the football players. Like, I want them over my home. I want them to see how we live. I want my kids to be around that. It's healthy in a lot of ways. I want to minister to them in my home. But that was difficult to do with such a travel. So that's what brought us out here, was simply to get closer to Tallmadge. And that's what brought us to this church. As again, many as you may know, Tallmadge, the school, had some levy issues a few years ago. And so like I said, this coaching thing is unpredictable. And unfortunately, my job was not going to be safe because of the budget cuts. And I'm grateful for the people at Tallmadge for being very honest with me very early, because it didn't have to be. That gave me the opportunity to look elsewhere to support my family, and that's how I landed at Kent Roosevelt. And to highlight how we feel about this coaching thing, in the interview process at Roosevelt, they asked me this question. And it's a pretty common question. Many of you probably gotten it in interviews, potentially. Do you want the kids to like you? And I said no. And you should have seen their faces. But I said, no, I want all the kids to love me. We treat this coaching thing, and our program, everywhere I've been, I say this. If I have only made you a good football player, I have failed you. My number one goal is to make you great husbands and fathers. And that's why we moved here, and Roosevelt's close enough, we're going to stay where we're at, having the kids over to make a difference in their life, and that's how we look at it as a ministry. The Lord has been good to us. I appreciate you listening this morning. As I get into the message here, and I know we're still at the beginning stages of 2021, and any business or any corporation or team or church that's any good is going to have hopefully some goals and objectives for us in 2021. And it makes me pause for a second because, Pastor Josh and Pastor Doug and our elders and leadership team, we are surrounded by awesome leaders. I sat over there the last 3 weeks and listening to Josh's plan for us as a church in 2021. From a leadership standpoint, it was very clear. It was exactly what we needed from the year we just came off of. So we have a great leader over there and great people. At Roosevelt, our slogan this year for the season is going to be TNSFEO, the next step for each other. We've been 5-5, and then we've been 4-3, so we're ready to go to the next step. I just think those are always important. It gives you something to shoot for. Josh's sermon the last couple weeks really been highlighting about reconnecting, right? Basically, there's some things that we need to do to start reconnecting here. As difficult as it's been, something we need to start doing. And the respect that I have for that is immense because it's true. And it was so clear. And what I've tried to do with this message is kind of, from a lay person who sits over there, kind of give, it's clear. There's no gray area, and that's what leadership is. And we can't go out. It's clear. Here's the options. Here's what you do. And it's centered by one thing: fulfill the Great Commission, the Great Commandment, to make disciples that make disciples. But as I sit there and I'm around teams and I've seen businesses and corporations, why do they not fulfill their goals? It's distractions, overcomplicating things, and forgetting your purpose. So let's open the text here real quick. If you have your Bibles, please open to Matthew chapter 25, and we'll go through verses 14 through 30. This is the parable of the talents. This is Jesus speaking here. It says again, it'll be like a man on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth on them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more bags. So also the one who had 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who received the 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with 2 bags of gold also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold, Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, "You wicked, lazy servant, so you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I return, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. For whoever has given more, they will have abundance. Whoever does not, even though they will have, will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." So according to macrotrend.com, the average life is around 78 years. So that's the number I'm going to use this morning. And as Christians, Christ followers, those 78 years matter. As the parable illustrates, we are to use what God has given us. Everybody in this room listening online has gifts. Not everybody can do what you do. You have to believe that, number one. That is the enemy distracting from that truth. There is a reason why you have the talents that you do. Are you using them to further the kingdom? That's the question that we got to ask ourselves as we go into 2021. Use your God-given gifts. Take risk for the sake of the kingdom. Make a difference in this world by being different from this world. As I mentioned before, I just think, again, I'm just too simple. That's why I said earlier, I get it probably from my dad. I think we all, myself or in businesses, teams, whatever, we overcomplicate things, we get distracted, and that keeps our eyes off of our goals. So I'll give you another football analogy, and probably, you're probably sick of that, but that's what I know best. So it's the same thing in coaching. There's coaches that make a lot of money, and I know some people in here think that's ridiculous. Coaches making $2 million a year and stuff like that. I understand it, right? And I've been in rooms where guys, you could go at our level, college level, pro level, whatever. Those guys know what they're doing. They can draw up all these great plays, and it looks really cool. And those are great ideas. And I do the same thing on my staff. I like ideas. Give me the ideas, right? But there's got to be a point, especially in high school football, you have to stop being overcomplicated because the kids just can't play fast. They can't do what they're supposed to do. So I have a rule of thumb. I call the offense. That's what I do. All right, so here's how I get ready for a football game. So we've got an opponent coming up, and we get 3, 4, 5 of their games, just depending on how far along in the year it is. So I watch every game 3 different times. And the first time is simply just putting in data. We have a computer system that helps us put in data, alphabetize things, et cetera. So I just put in the data that I need. And the main thing is the formations that the other team is running, obviously put it in our verbiage, all right? And so then the second time I go through the film, I'm able then to just categorize it. I want to see out of this formation, how does that defense line up to it? And I just start charting it through the games. Then I start developing the game plan of, okay, this is generally about 80% of the time, this is what they're going to give us in this formation. So out of this formation, here's what's good. The third time I look through it, and I look at just the other team's personnel. Who's a good player? And in every high school team, who's the bad player? Everybody's got a fish, and we say, we got to go tack the fish. Right? So where's the fish going to be in this formation? What that does for me, because I've been there, like you think all these great plays and stuff, but it gets complicated. And the kids, as you can see on Saturday, I've been there. Like you turn the film in on Saturday and the kids just aren't playing well, and you look at your call sheet, well, there's too much there. Like there's just too much, so that helps me simplify it so the kids can just play fast, as they don't have to think. God has you right where he wants you, in the place that he has you, with the talents that you have. And that 78 years that we have, it matters. Are you about doing the Lord's business with the gifts that he has given you? Don't overcomplicate it. That's what it boils down to. That's what he's tried to give us as a church for 2021. Here are the things that we should be doing. Small group, worship, wherever you're comfortable. Excellent. I mean, it's clear. But we got to do something. And I'm not saying we earn our way to heaven, none of that stuff. I'm not saying that. But out of our love for him and for others, he's given you a gift. Don't bury your talent into the ground because you feel you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. Whatever. God has given you that ability. Use that ability for his kingdom. And I just think we got to keep it simple as a church. Wherever, how comfortable you are right now, there's clear plans for green, for blue, for orange. But none of them say, well, you don't really have to try to use your gifts and your talents to further the kingdom. Because I tell you, 78 years, or whenever it is, we get called home. And we're standing there on Judgment Day. All of us should want to hear this, right? Well done, good and faithful servants. Let's pray. Father, I thank you for putting us in such a wonderful church surrounded by awesome leaders. Lord, 2020 has been trying for us all. And as we are in 2021, I pray that we as a church start reconnecting. I pray that each individual person this morning truly knows that you have called us. I pray that we use your gifts you have given to us to further your kingdom. That you have called us to make disciples. We know we cannot earn our way there. It's because of your great love for us, we can call you our Father in heaven. Help us as we start 2021 to keep our eyes fixed on you and not on the world. I pray we do not fear, because your perfect love casts out all fear. We thank you and praise you for your goodness and grace that we do not deserve. Help us, Father, be the people you called us to be. In Jesus' name, amen.